The first flutter Vine felt inside her belly had been the softest miracle, like the brush of butterfly wings against her skin. Vine had stilled that moment, her hand pressing over her stomach, as though she couldn't cradle the tiny life already forming within. Her eyes had closed, her lips trembling into a smile she hadn't worn in so long. She whispered to herself in a voice meant only for the child, "You're going to change everything." For weeks she had lived on that fragile hope, carrying it like a lamp in a darkened home. Her marriage to Jungkook was not cruel, not violent, but there was a distance in that. It hurt more than the sharp words could have. He was a man carved from stone, his face hot, his tone club, his touch cold. Nights beside him felt like lying next to winter itself, silent, endless. She had often wondered if she was invisible to him, if he even remembered she was his wife and not just someone sharing his roof. And yet she loved him. She didn't even know when that love had planted itself in her, only that it had grown wild, refusing to leave even when starved. Every day she prayed for him to see her, to really look at her, to find warmth in his heart, where there was only ice. Wine told herself that patience was the answer. One day he would soften. One day he would reach for her the way she reached for him in her heart, 100 times each day. So when she saw those pink lines on the test, her hands had shaken not from fear but from overwhelming joy. This was it. This was the miracle that would melt the frost between them. A baby, their baby. Something that belonged to both of them, something that would force him to look at her not just as a woman he had married, but as the mother of his child. She remembered the evening she told him. He was at the dining table, his laptop open, his files spread like files between them. The yellow lamp cast shadow over his sharp jawline, his lips pressed together in concentration. She had stood in the doorway for a long moment, watching him, feeling the nervous flutter in her chest. Then she gathered her courage and walked forward, holding the stick in her trembling hands. "Jungkook," she whispered, almost breathless. Yes, he looked up, brows drawing together, her throat went dry. She placed the test on the table in front of him, her lips curving into a smile she could no longer contain. We are we are going to have a baby." The silence that followed nearly broke her. His gaze flicked to the test, then back to her face, and for a moment she thought she saw something. Something like surprise, maybe even softness. But then it was gone. His jaw tightened and his voice was flat with a hidden amusement and happiness when he said, "That's good news." Chengu wrapped his hands around her and said, "Thank you." Just that. No smile, no kiss, only three cold words that hung in the air like frost, and now one added word too. Wine forced herself to smile wider, to swallow the sting burning in her chest. He's just shocked. He doesn't know how to show it yet. He will come around. He has to. So she carried the hope alone. She sang to the little one inside her when she was alone in the kitchen. She stroked her belly in secret, imagining the curve it would soon take. At night, she turned her body toward Jungkook, wanting him to notice, to reach out, to place a hand where the child grew, but he never did. She told herself it would change when he sees the baby, when he hears the first cry, everything will be different. But fate had other plans. It was an ordinary day, bright and full of small promises. Wine had gone to the market, her long scarf fluttering as she chatted with the vegetable vendor. She even hummed a tune under her breath, imagining what she might cook for Jungkook that evening. Maybe if she made his favorite dish, he would smile at her. Maybe he would speak more than a few words. She remembered holding the heavy bags, her steps slow as she crossed the road. The air was thick with honks and voices, the usual chaos of the market, and then it happened. The blare of a horn, a bike swerving too close, the screech of tires. She stumbled backward, her foot catching on the rough edge of the pavement. The bags tumbled from her hands, vegetables scattering across the ground like tiny explosions of green and orange. She fell hard, her breath knocked from her lungs, and then came the pain, sharp, searing, clawing at her abdomen until her cry ripped through the noise of the street. Hands pulled at her, voices shouting, someone yelling to call an ambulance. The world spun around her, a blur of faces and the sky, and all she could do was clutch her stomach and whisper through gasps, "Please, please hold on, baby. Please don't leave me." The hospital smelled of antiseptic, its white walls glaring under the lights. Wine was wheeled into their room, doctors speaking in clipped tones above her head. Time lost all meaning, her body trembled, her fingers aching from clutching at the bedsheet. She begged silently, bargaining with God, with fate, with anyone who would listen. "Take anything from me, but not this. Please, not this." When the doctor came out, his expression told her everything before he spoke. His voice was soft, too soft, like words wrapped in pity. "I'm sorry, we couldn't save the baby. The world ended." She remembered the sound she made it. It wasn't even human, more like something torn from deep inside her, raw and broken. Her hands flew to her stomach, but it was empty, hollow. Her baby was gone. Her hope was gone. Jungkook stood by the window, tall and silent, his face unreadable. He didn't come to her, didn't take her hand, didn't even whisper that it would be okay. His silence was worse than the pain tearing through her chest. "Jungkook," her voice cracked. "I'm so sorry. Sorry." But he didn't answer. Wine lay there drowning in guilt, thinking it must have been her fault. Maybe she hadn't walked carefully enough. Maybe she should have been stronger. Maybe she hadn't deserved the baby at all. Days blurred together. She returned home, but the house no longer felt like home. Every corner whispered of what she had lost. She would wake in the night, her hands pressing desperately against her stomach, only to remember again and again that there was nothing there. She cried into her pillow so Jungkook wouldn't hear, though she doubted he would have cared if he had. And then his mother came. His mom's eyes were sharp from the moment she entered. She didn't offer sympathy, didn't embrace her. Instead, her voice was laced with venom. "You should have been more careful," she said, standing in the middle of the living room like a judge delivering a sentence. "Carrying a child is not a small matter. Women are supposed to be cautious, protective. But you couldn't even do that." Vian's lips parted, her throat burning. "It was an accident." "Accident?" Mom scoffed, her bangles clinging as she gestured sharply. "Carelessness, that's what it is. My grandchild is gone because of you. Do you even realize what you have family?" Vine's eyes filled with tears, and instinctively she looked at Cheng, begging silently for him to say something, anything to tell his mother to stop. To tell her it wasn't Vine's fault, but he only sat there, his gaze fixed on the floor, his face carved into silence. The silence was a betrayal. Once he looked up, he gestured her to not mind any of that to her. From that moment, his mom's cruelty knew no end. At every meal, every gathering, she found new ways to twist the knife. "Some women don't deserve the blessing of children. My poor son cursed with a wife who can't even keep his child safe. If you had truly cared, you would have guarded the baby with your life." Each word was lip-played, each glance a slap. Wine shrank further into herself, guilt eating her alive. Sometimes she whispered to the shadows, maybe she is right, maybe it is really my fault. One night, unable to sleep, she slipped onto the balcony, the night air cool against her damp cheeks. She looked up at the stars, her hands pressed over her flat stomach, and whispered, I'm sorry, my baby. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect you. Her sobs shook her, soft and broken, until she heard the door creak. Jungkook stepped out, his figure tall and silent in the moonlight. Her breath caught, hope sparking for the first time in weeks. Maybe he had come to comfort her. Maybe he would finally reach for her. But he only looked at her for a moment, unreadable as always, then turned and walked back inside, closing the door behind him. The sound of the door clicking shut echoed louder than her sobs. She sank into her knees, clutching herself as the stars blurred above her. For the first time, she realized the truth that broke her more than the loss of a child. She was grieving not just the baby she had lost, but the love she had never truly had, even though this was a forced marriage for him. It was not for her. She loved him to the point she don't even want to leave him. The days after the loss stretched endlessly, each one heavier than the last. Wine moved like a shadow through the house, her footsteps soft, her shoulders hushed as though carrying a weight no one else could see. Meals had no taste, sleep came only in brief, broken fragments filled with nightmares of blood. Screeching tires and the doctor's voice saying sorry. Every morning she woke with the same hollow ache in her stomach and the bitter reminder that she was no longer carrying life but emptiness. Jungkook barely spoke. He left for work early, returned late, and when he did, his presence was distant as the sound of traffic outside the windows. He sat with his laptop or stared into the news on the television, as though words, headlines, numbers were safer than the silence they shared. She wanted to scream sometimes, to shake him until he looked at her, until he said something that would make her feel less alone, but the scream always died in her throat, replaced by the same guilty whisper, it was my fault. I lost baby. Maybe he blames me too. His mom's visit became more frequent, with every step of her sandals echoing through the hall. Wine's stomach knotted. The older woman's presence turned the house into a courtroom, and Wine stood accused every moment of the day. One evening, his mom stood in the kitchen doorway, her eyes sweeping over the way Wine's hands shook as she cut vegetables. You are chopping too fast, she said sharply. That is your problem. You never slow down, never take care. Even during pregnancy, I told you to rest more, didn't I? But no, you had to run around in the market like some careless girl. And now? She let the sentence hang, heavy and cruel. Wine froze, the knife trembling in her grip, her lips parted, but no words came out. She could only lower her gaze, bringing back tears that threatened to fall into the chopping board. His mom's voice hardened. A woman who cannot bring a child safely into this world? What word does she have? My son deserves better. The words stabbed deep, each syllable leaving a wound that would never fully heal. Wine's throat burned, but she stayed silent. What could she say? She had begged God every moment in that hospital that she would have given her life if it meant saving the baby. None of it mattered, not to his mom, and certainly not even Jungkook never spoke in her defense. That night at dinner, his mom continued. Look at my poor son, she said, heaping food onto Jungkook's plate as though she were the only one who cared for him. Working day and night, carrying the burden of a life who cannot even give him a hair. Do we even know how people talk Wine? They say a wife who loses a child has no blessings in her. Wine's eyes filled with tears, her hand tightening on the spoon until it hurt. She looked at Jungkook, her heart bounding with desperate hope that he would say something, anything, that he would tell his mother to stop, that he would tell her it wasn't Wine's fault. But he only chewed slowly, his eyes fixed on his plate as though the food required his full attention. The silence was louder than the cruelty. After his mom left that night, Wine sat cold in bed, staring at the wall while Jungkook lay beside her, scrolling through his phone. Finally, unable to bear it anymore, she whispered, "Why don't you say anything?" He looked up. About what? Her heart had cracked at that indifference in this thought. When she blames me, when she said such things, you just sit there. Her voice broke as she pressed her palm to her chest as though to hold herself together. Don't you see how much it hurts? Jungkook's thumb buzzed on the phone. For a moment she thought he would turn to her, that he would reach for her hand, but instead he placed the phone on the table and lay back on the pillow. His eyes remained on the ceiling, his jaw clenched. What do you want me to say, Vine? The baby is gone. Nothing will change that. His words sliced through her, colder than his mom's venom. She rolled to her side, her tears soaking into the pillow. In the darkness, she whispered, I wanted you to tell me it wasn't my fault. But he said nothing. The nights became unbearable. Sometimes she sat alone in the bathroom with the door locked, muffling her sobs with her scarf. No one would hear. Sometimes she pressed her face into the pillow and begged silently, please just me, touch me, just tell me I'm not alone. But Jungkook's body beside her might as well have been a wall. His mom, on the other hand, found new ways each day to deepen the wounds. When Vine made tea, his mom would sigh dramatically. My son used to drink tea made by me, full of love. Now look at him drinking tea made by someone who killed his child. When Vine cleaned the living room, his mom would mutter just loud enough to be heard. A woman who cannot take care of a baby is busy taking care of dust. The words began to seep into Vine's bones, until even in her moments alone she found herself repeating them. Maybe I really don't deserve children. Maybe I don't deserve Jungkook either. One afternoon, Vine sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her hands. When she heard voices from the living room, his mom's voice carried easily through the walls. Jungkook, you are my old man. You should think about your future. Do you want to taste your life with a woman like that? This family needs an heir, and she cannot give you one. Wine's breath caught in her throat. She pressed her palm against her mouth, stifling the sob that rose. There was a silence for a moment, and her heart pounded in terror at what he might say. Then Jungkook's voice, low but steady. This isn't the time to talk about such things. And also, he lowered his voice so that Vine couldn't hear. Don't talk to Vine like that, my mom. That was all. No defense, no refusal, just postponement. Vine hurled into herself on the bed, shaking as tears streamed down her face. She had become a ghost in her own home, alive but unseen, carrying a grief no one wanted to share with her. One night, unable to bear it, she stood on the balcony again, staring up at the sky. The stars blinked down, indifferent and eternal as though mocking her smallness. Why? She whispered into the dark. Why did you give me hope only to take it away? Wasn't I patient enough? Haven't I suffered enough already? Her hands gripped the railing until her knuckles hurt. She thought of the baby he would never hold, the tiny clothes she would never buy, the lullabies she would never sing. Behind her, she heard the door open softly. Jungkook stepped out, his presence filling the balcony with quiet tension. For a moment, she didn't turn, afraid to see the same cold indifference in his eyes. "You will catch a cold," he said finally, his voice low. She turned, her eyes brimming with tears. "I'm already cold, Jungkook. Can't you see?" His gaze flickered, something unspoken crossing his face, but then he looked away. He walked back inside, leaving the door open behind him. Wine stood alone under the stars, the weight of blame pressing heavier on her chest than ever before. Wine had stopped counting the days. They blurred into one another, heavy and repetitive, like waves dragging her farther into the sea. Each morning began with the same hollow ache in her chest, and each night ended with the pillow damp from silent tears. In between, there was his mum's sharp chunk. Jungkook's silence and the echo of a baby's cry she sometimes saw she could hear in her dreams. She had become accustomed to silence, to swallowing her words, to hiding her pain behind a lowered gaze. But grief had a way of seeping into everything, of cracking even the walls she tried to build around herself. And sometimes it slipped out in ways she couldn't control. One evening after yet another day of his mom's endless blame, Vine found herself standing at the sink, scrubbing a plate harder than necessary. Her hands trembled, her breath came in ragged bursts, and suddenly the plate stripped from the fingers, crashing to the floor. Shreds scattered across the tiles, a sharp sound that seemed to split the heavy air in the kitchen. His mum rushed in at once, her face twitched with disdain. "Even this you can't do properly? First the baby, now the dishes. What next, Wine? Will you break my son too?" The words struck like stones, and before Wine could stop herself, her lips trembled open. "Please stop. Please don't say such things." His mom narrowed her eyes. "And why not? Do you expect me to praise you after what you have done? You carry the weight of your sins, Vine. You killed my grandchild, and you expect me to stay silent?" Tears burned Vine's eyes, but only for once. She didn't lower her head. Something inside her cracked open, something raw and desperate. "It was not my fault, and I didn't want this to happen. Do you think I wanted to lose my baby? Do you think I don't suffer every moment of every day?" Her voice broke, rising into the stillness of the house. "I loved that child more than everything, and I lost him too. Stop punishing me from something I could not control." The silence after her outburst was deafening. Her chest heaved, her hands shook, but for the first time since the accident she had spoken her pain aloud. His mom's lips curled in a cruel smile. "Ah, so the little mouse has a voice after all. But words won't change the truth. A careful mother protects her child. You failed, and nothing you say will erase that." Vine's heart crumbled again, her grief fire extinguished by those words. She sank to her knees, gathering the broken shreds of the plate with trembling hands, not even caring when they cut her skin. It was then that Jungkook appeared in the doorway, his tall frame shadowed against the light of the living room. His eyes swept over the scene, Vine crouched on the floor, his mom standing with her arms crossed, the fragments of broken glass scattered across the tiles. For a moment his expression shifted, something flickering behind his gaze. But then it was gone. He turned silently and walked away. Vine's chest tightened. She wanted him to stay, to kneel beside her, to take her hand and tell her to stop hurting herself. But he didn't. He never did. That night, after his mom had left, Vine sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her bandaged fingers. The room was quiet except for the ticking of the clock, each second a reminder of the silence between her and Jungkook. Finally, she couldn't bear it anymore. She turned to him, her voice low but trembling with desperation. Why do you never say anything? Why do you let her speak to me like that? Jungkook didn't look up from the book he held. I didn't hear anything. Maybe she was grieving too. Her heart twisted. And I'm not? Do you think I don't grieve every second of the day? Do you think I don't blame myself enough, Audrey? Why do you let her? Why do you let me suffer alone? His jaw clenched, his hands tightening around the book until his knuckles went white. He closed it with a sharp snap and finally looked at her, his eyes dark and stormy. What do you want from me, Vine? Do you want me to fight with my own mother? Do you want me to pretend that I'm not angry? I told you to not go outside, but you did, without telling me. Do you think this pain is only yours? Her breath caught. Then why do you act like I don't exist? Like I'm invisible? Tears blurred her vision, spilling down her cheeks. I lost our child too, Jungkook. I lost the dream of holding him, of raising him with you. But instead of holding me, you have left me alone in the dark. What did I do to deserve this silence? For a moment, he said nothing, his chest rising and falling with unsteady breaths. Then, in a voice lower than she had ever heard, he murmured, "Because if I look at you, I remember." Her heart thudded painfully. Remember what? His gaze hardened. The blood, the doctor's words, the way you screamed in that hospital. Every time I see you, I see the child we lost. I see the life that slipped away. And I can't bear it. Vine's world still. For so long, she had thought his silence was indifference, that his coldness was a punishment, but now she saw something else hidden beneath grief, raw and jagged, buried under walls of. Tears streamed down to her face, her voice breaking. Do you think I don't see that too? Do you think I don't wake every morning with that same memory? But Jungkook, you were supposed to share it, not let it tear us apart. You are not the only one who lost something. I lost too. For the first time in weeks, his gaze wavered. Something softened in his eyes. Though his jaw remained tight, he turned away, pressing his palms to the temples as though her words were too heavy to bear.